We'll go ahead and start recording here. So let's talk more about your data. So I tried to do side by side. Your last test was in February, so about a year ago. I mean, this test was in December, so it's pretty close. You see that like performance factor went up, you know, pretty considerably, considering where you're at, and stuff like club release speed went up. I mean, you're up there now. I mean, it's, close to 2,000. For my numbers, that's really high. And your utilization is improved, so you're utilizing a big portion of that. So those kinds of things. And I can't remember what club we were using or anything like that, but certainly club head speeds, are up now into the, between anywhere between 10, I mean, for my numbers, above 100, 100 to 105, certainly 100 to 110 is pretty darn good. I don't see, except for my long drive guys, I don't see speeds that are too much above like 112, 115, and that's pretty big hitters. So club head speed, so a lot of like external numbers or like resultant type of numbers have gone up for you. So just that alone is good stuff. So you see that your outputs are going up. Your speeds. I mean, look at your hip speed, your shoulder speed, stuff like that. It's all gone up. Your arm speeds. Everything speed wise has all gone up. Your utilization has gone up considerably. I mean, for where you're at, that roughly 15 to 20% jump is pretty good. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So, I mean, all those numbers are pretty solid and give you a pretty good indication that things have gotten better. Like things are going better. So then, when you look at the kinetic link, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll have to go back and look at the day two, just so I know what it is. If that was like what you were doing, it'd be good to kind of know what it was you're doing. I honestly don't know, off the top of my head. I have to go back and look. Um, but it was with, let me see here real quick. It was probably with the first test here. No, it was. It doesn't. The link's not coming up on mine. Uh-uh. Which is weird. Oh, okay. 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 Um, I don't know. I mean, one of the things that like I find is that like it's really hard unless I can see you and interact with you. It's pretty hard for me to know because the thing is, and I find this. I mean, this isn't like new. I mean, it's not like I've just figured this out. But I mean, it's one of those things. It's more and more obvious to me. Like when I watch even like the kids. Like so, like the kids use them as an example. I've got like 9 or 10 that are for here probably top 10 golfers in the area. I mean, not just like right here, but just the whole stack area. And a couple of them are actually, like nationally ranked. One of them in particular I've been working with for a while. He's really good. But when they're doing their stuff, they're all doing the same exercises, but they're all doing them completely differently. And how they do their exercises, and I would say it's just specific to how I've designed the program, but you can see the tendencies. And what I try to tell them, and these are all kids that are anywhere from like 15 to 16, 14, 15 to upwards of 17. I think I might have one senior, but they're basically pretty savvy kids, and I try to tell them, like, it's not really what you do, it's more obviously within reason, but it's more how you do it. Like if you're just doing it, you think you're doing it right per se, but you're not. Like you're the same issues you have, you're just repeating over and over again. You're only going to get a minimal benefit from that. So part of the thing is not being able to see you do this stuff. It's really hard for me to be able to say, oh gosh, do this or do that and get more out of it. So part of it has to do with what you're doing, and then part of it has to do with how you're doing it. So, but what I think, like, so here you have, let me grab that pencil. So here you have kind of this, you got minimal lower body stuff, right? So because it's like this, right? So really what you want is that boom, boom, and you want that to drive something, right? And here you don't really have that. Here you just kind of, up, 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 and then slowing down mostly as a function of just positional kind of stuff, right? So you didn't really have that here. And then the upper torso and the arms pretty much blend together, and then you release the club off of that. So, I mean, you've got, if you look at the sequence per se, you've probably got, this isn't really a peak, but let's just call it a peak, and then you got a peak here, you got a peak here, you got a peak here. So you could say that's a kinetic link, and it is, but even though this is a little bit funkier, you actually are starting to have this. You got a couple different times, But and then you also have this to this, and this as a function of that, So those things I like, because anytime acceleration is not a problem, but acceleration to deceleration is where most people fail, where they kind of don't get the connection between the segments. They just kind of muck it all together, kind of blend it all together. So I like the fact that your speeds are high and that you are actually connecting yourself better. I like that a lot. I think that what ends up happening in your swing is that I don't think you transition real smoothly because you got this, and then you real smoothly. Like I think yeah. I don't have the video here. I'd have to let me see if I can pull up the video. Hold on a second. In the what? Yeah. This is you. This is you kind of having a faulty start. I'm more looking at this stuff here. This is you. This is you kind of like. I think this. Yeah, this is more. I think more a function of you not transitioning real smoothly. I think that it's one of those things where like and again, I'm not there, and I don't know, but like I'll just give you my gut reaction to it is that this is more positional stuff, like your golf swing positional stuff, and this is more your power. So I think like you get. That's why I was going to try to bring up your video. And what's funny is that like you can, especially golfers of your caliber, you guys can, you can. You can get your bodies to look different way. That like you're just your average dude just doesn't do. And I'm just trying to think of where I downloaded your video. I've been just really quick if I can. Might just go. How did you send it to me? Did you upload it? Oh, here you go. Let's just pull up your. Oh, you want to do that? Yeah, well, I think you know when you look at yourself, like what ends up happening, and this is a discussion I think we've had like a number of times. I think you when you get into your transition, I think you get kind of lost in the transition, you know, and it's hard for you to get out of the transition. So you waste a lot of time and energy getting out of the transition, you know. I think it's, I mean, you know, I don't know that there's an answer per se, but when I look at it, I'm just trying to get rid of this. See if I can get rid of that. I stupidly hit iTunes by accident, so it's like taking over everything. Okay. So let's just watch your swing here. So like in this zone, you're trying to get stuff started, and then it's not until in here that you really kind of kick things in. So the transition is, if I can just kind of step through there, it's chunked together. You know what I mean? Like you're not, and then it's right in here where you're actually starting to get going. So I mean, part of it is like you physically or like visually or whatever, you look good in here. But I think this is a position that's more almost kind of manufactured for you, and then you don't really get crank until you're like in here, you know. And now here you're ripping from there, but then you've kind of got all this extra. Let's get back to here. So you've got that whole transition thing is like, okay, you're you know the hips are kind of like, and remember this is all about like less than like a quarter of a second, right? So but you're kind of like slowing things down, then you're engaging, then the arms go, then you get going, you know. So it's kind of like the way I look at it is, if we get back to here is, so you're in transition here. So now you're here, and then you're slowing things down in your lower body. So you get this little blippity thing, which really doesn't amount to much, but it's just you kind of like creating a counter torque to kind of get in position. And then you turn. So here, like right here, this is like this and this moving together just to kind of get your arms going. That's this part right here. And then the arms get going. And then you're like, okay, now let's get going, you know. So now you're like, here now you're like, boom, let's start rock and rolling. But you what you've got is you got yourself set up for this and this to kind of work together, and it is driving the arms, and you are going to release the club. Like your release is out here. So if you look at like that big peak, see that big peak, which is awesome because the speed is fantastic. I mean, no matter when it's happening, see that boom, see that right there. So like the way I measure things is I'm looking at the speed of the shaft itself relative to this line, right? So if you watch this next little bit here and watch it kind of more in full, almost full speed, watch. From there to, see how fast that angle changed? And now what's happening? You're just hanging on. You know what I mean? So you just flip the club out there. That's just prior to your peak. And now, look, you're just hanging. You know what I mean? Right? So it's like, if you look at how fast, like, so first you go here, you go slow down, see the little bit. I don't know if you can even see. I don't know if you can see. Watch your little lower body movement. I don't know if you can see that, but so you're up here and you're going counterclockwise, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're going clockwise. Let's see, looking down, you're going clockwise, and now watch your lower body right in there as you're slowing down. You see that little bit? I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of like I'm stepping it. Do you see that little bit? Do you see it? Like you can actually see it go this way, just a little bit. And that's just you basically slowing everything down up here, kind of getting in position. If you if you go back to this video and you step it through on your own screen, you'll see what I mean. So like you'll see that like if I go back, no, oh, you can't see the video? Okay. Well, can you see the video I'm playing for you now though? Okay. Yeah. I, I just think, yeah, yep, yeah, I would agree. Yep, I would agree. You right there, you're like in a good position visually, as far as the club and the arms and your posture and everything looks pretty good. But you're struggling for sure. And you can see the lower body, boom, clicks. You haven't even finished rotating backward on the club, and your lower body clicks, but then it stops, and then the upper torso goes. That's where you get this, that 40 to 50, right? And then the lower body starts to kick in again a little bit, but it's not really doing much. Look how much the arms are moving. That's this zone in here. So yeah, you're struggling with the transition, and I think that's kind of been the thing ongoing. But it overall though, it's better, right? So the reason you're getting close to 2,000 degrees, I don't care where it occurs in your swing, the fact that you're getting close to 2,000 degrees per second of rotational speed is impressive, and that's coming from this stuff, getting the deceleration, even here, boom. So this is all very good stuff. What we need to do is help you clean this crap up, and then you're going to get a more sort of separated activity. So, I mean, part of it is if you want, I mean, I think that when you transition into your swing pattern, my guess is that when you're doing drill movements, especially with shorter clubs, that this stuff is kind of minimized or maybe even eliminated. So this stuff, yeah, yep. Well, yeah, I think it's partially. I think it's one of the things is I think that in order for, I mean, again, this is subtle compared to like, you're more like higher handicap type of golfer, but I think really what ends up happening is you're getting yourself more in transition. You get yourself more to position than you do engage transition and then let position kind of handle itself. Does that make sense? I mean, I think what ends up happening is you get in position first, which means you compromise transition and then you have to work out of the position. Where I think what you're better off doing, not only with the longer clubs, but I think it probably is easier to do with shorter clubs and shorter range of motion. But you want to engage transition and let the position kind of take care of itself. So if you're engaging transition, uh, so in other words, you're you're facilitating the transition earlier and more aggressively, and letting position sort of take not, I want to say, like, say, not a backseat to it, but kind of like let position flow off of your transition. I think you'd be better off. I think you could get rid of a lot of this if you just transition first and then let position take care of itself. Because I mean, those are subtle terms, and it's a nuance, not a gross, obvious kind of thing. But I just think that you're getting more as you get up in here. That's more positional, and now you're trying to fight your way out of that position, and it takes a while to get it going for you. And then boom, you flip the club out there. That's all your speed happens right here, man. That's bam, right out there. So, and then from here to here, you're pretty much just hanging on. That's where you're just dragging this out and holding on to as much as you can. So I think it boils down to, my guess is that you've developed a lot of the fundamental, kind of underpinning patterns, but just relating it to the swing, especially at longer clubs, driver, whatnot, that I think it's just not transitioning well into the swing because in these instances, and again, I think the longer the club, the more obvious. It's a longer club. The tempo is a little bit different. It's the shaft, the length and the shaft and all that. You don't feel as directly connected to the club face as you would with a shorter iron or a mid iron or something like that. Just because there's more whippiness to the action. So I mean, I think all those things combined, put you more in a state of like creating a position and then trying to fight out of the position, as opposed to just changing direction and then kind of like not worrying, but like kind of dealing with the positions as a function of the transition. So Mm-hmm. 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 Have you that's well, I think it's probably a little bit of everything, right? I mean, I think it's probably a little bit of of functional strength and mobility. You're able to get in those positions, but are you strong enough to get out of them? Kind of thing. But also just the so that's part of like just strength and mobility, but then also partly the technique of it and the coordination of it. If you do, just as a question, I mean, have you varied the towel snap uh, like length? Like, have you varied the length of the towel from like more of like a mid to more of like a long club or a driver length at all? Yeah. Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you do that with your driver, are you saying you feel it to be more difficult to make that movement with the longer club with the driver? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, that's good information, though. I mean, that makes. I mean that. I mean, the way you're describing it is important. I think because that gives me some idea of kind of what you're feeling without having without obviously having the ability to see you and interact with you. How you're describing it makes. I mean, that clarifies things a little bit for me too. I have to think about it a little bit, but that makes. I mean, that makes a difference because kind of what the way you're describing is important. Um, yeah, so let me think a little bit about, I mean, we can go through more of the data, but let me think a little bit about that because I think that this is something that we've definitely talked about before. I mean, this club and this transition stuff is kind of things that we keep coming back to. So it's obviously for you, obviously, and I'm sure for lots. I mean, it's not like just your issue, but I think it's an important. I'm thinking a little bit. I guess you have to give me a little bit of time to digest some of that. But yeah, I think that yeah. Hmm. Yeah. 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 yeah, 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 yeah. No, it makes. I mean, it's yeah. All right, this is good. This is good. This is good. I like this. I mean, let me think a little bit about it. I mean, uh, and just even visually, you can see. I mean, you can see what the graphs are trying to tell you. But the upside is that you've done a really great job advancing. I mean, but you're still, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. But it's still stuck. This. Um, and then obviously, yeah. Well, I think it's one of those little subtle things where, like I said, it's like, and I think that's one of those nice things about being able. But if you can see, like, you go back here, is what's interesting is if you just look, like, as you're trying to set the club right there, your lower body right there is moving forward. Your hips are starting to. That's what this little bump is. You're just setting the club, and then you kind of get this. All right, I'm going to move. See it moving a little bit. I'm going to move a little bit more to start. So it's like the first bump is you setting it. The second bump is you starting the movement, and then this last bump is you trying to actually, produce some power out of that. But the last bump doesn't come till like down in here. Like is it? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, just trying to get in the game. I think you want to get rid of this. You want this to be strong, and then you want this to connect like that, and then bump the arms up and that from there. But like I think even say like the arm action itself, the arms kind of track off, but they don't really pump up a lot off of there. They're kind of stuck in there. You can even see as like they come through. Whoops, as they come through here, they're kind of stuck in there, or kind of like and then the club flings off of the torso mostly, and then you're kind of just hanging on with the arms there, just trying to square things up. But I mean, obviously squaring things up well and all that. But yeah, let me think a little bit. Let me think a little bit about that. This could be fun. I mean, in addition to getting you more success, I think it'd be interesting to play around with some stuff. So if you're up for it, what I'll do is, yeah, yeah. Well, let me Yeah. Well, let me, based on your description, and then obviously how it's pairing up with the graph. I mean, let me give me a little bit to put some ideas together for some variations of stuff, and let's see if like in a short period of time, like even like say like 3 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, that you can start to feel some differences in what you're describing. Because I think that like part of it's technique. Part of it is I don't mean technique as far as golf technique, but I mean more like movement. But I think also part of it could be uh, patterning. Like strength and mobility through certain ranges for you. And and so let me think a little bit about. So give me a couple days or so to get some thoughts, and then I'll get some PST stuff together. Maybe what we can do is circle back around for a quick go-to meeting next week if it fits schedule, just to kind of like I'll tell you what I did, and then I'll have it up online and we can discuss it. Um, But let's do that. Like, I think this is cool. I like this. I mean, I think your description has got me thinking, about, uh, yeah. Well, that's cool because I'm kind of like, I think there's some cool stuff we can do here, and I think that's the best part of this stuff is not, I mean, you obviously have some approaches and you have some strategies, but it's being able to sort of adapt to what's going on that's so powerful. So I think, yeah, give me a little bit, and then we'll circle back around next week. I'll get some stuff up online, by the weekend, and then we can circle back around sometime next week just to chat a little bit about it, and then you can start playing with it and see what happens. All right, cool. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know that there's. I mean, we can take a quick look at, like, I mean, some of the stuff, like, still, like, so for example, like, and we've talked about this stuff I believe before, like, where, like, you still tend to be somewhat, uh I just think I just think that's what you're talking about, where you feel like in the rotation you get deep, and then it's hard to get out of that. So you end up being more rotational at first, and then you start kicking in the lower body, the lateral or the linear component late. And I think that's, kind of a function of what you're describing, kind of getting deep with the lower body and all that. But I think to some degree this can be related to uh, functional deficiencies, so to speak, movement deficiencies that are putting you in positions that are tough to get out of. So, um, yeah, so and then let me just see here. I mean, yeah, but yeah, no, I was just gonna say, that's just related to you getting deep, like posturally you look fine visually, like, in terms of golf swing posture, but in terms of anatomical posture, when you get deep and you over rotate, that's what ends up happening in your spine. You know what I mean? So even though you're maintaining your orientation for swing purposes, you're definitely sacrificing um, anatomical posture, so, and that has impact for sure. And this is part of the weakness that you get into. So um, so like now you're in a position where you're really not very strong, and it's a function of the position you're in anatomically, sort of functioning and all that good stuff. Um, but like as far as striking, I mean that's you don't get much better than that. I mean that's so solid. I mean that's just perfect. I mean like as far as being able to maximize your down the line and cross. I mean that's just like you know that's golden. So you got high speeds and you're just placing it on the ball effectively. It's just getting it a little bit more efficient. As far as this part in particular, the rotational. But I'll tell you what, I'll tell you, to be honest with you, I think that like I did this stuff just one example. I worked, when I was working oh, what's his face here, Ryan Steenberg, and you know, and and at first, and he was another guy. It's like I don't get, like the long drive thing isn't like he's competitive, but it's not like he was willing to do whatever just to try to make it happen. Like just to because it was kind of almost secondary, whatever you want to call it. But what we just is okay. So let's really look at what you're doing and let's really try to make some changes. And I remember he said, like, and for a long drive guy, he always hit these high cuts, and for a long drive that just sucks. I mean, couldn't turn the ball over to save his life. It's just these big high fade cut tight shots, and that's all he's ever done. And no matter what he did, he couldn't turn the ball over. He couldn't draw it. He couldn't hook it. He couldn't do anything and anything right to left. And so one of the first things that ended up happening when we started doing stuff, he's like, holy, and it went to almost extreme. He's like, I'm like freaking like pull hooking this thing, but not all the time. But, I have the occasion where I just snap hook this thing. And he's like, and I was like, oh, but he's like, it's awesome because I've never been able to do that ever. Like as hard as I've tried, I've never been able to do that. So to some degree, I use that as an example because I think that to some degree, when you start making changes, real changes, like, and I've run into lots of golfers at higher levels in particular who, because of lots of different reasons, obviously their livelihoods and everything else, they want to make changes, but they really don't, and they sort of make some superficial changes, but they don't really buy into changing. That's why it's honestly, I guess it's somewhat glamorous to work with the tour pro, but it's frustrating as hell because most tour pros, unless they're yeah, they don't want to. They're not trying to do shit. Like they're just what you're working with. Who's working with the guys that are trying to be like, the Web or the Hooters or the whoever tours. Those guys are fun to work with because they'll do anything. They're like, I want to get there. The tour players are just frustrating. So, I mean, the last time I worked with Brian, I mean, I've worked with Brian Gay for like 20 years, and the last time was a couple years ago, and now he's older and everything else, and he's like, yeah, I got to get distance. I'm like, all right, we got to. He's like, and it ended up basically being like, I don't really want like I don't want to. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. That's good enough. So, but yeah. But anyway, I think seeing some significantly different movement pattern from you is a good thing. So yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you go, but yeah, like give me some time. Like I'll get some stuff on by the end of the weekend, and then we can circle back around when it makes sense schedule wise next week and just chat about it. But and then what I'll do is I'll have you try some stuff, some old but some new, and then you kind of got to give me some feedback, and I can adjust as we go. Because the one advantage I have when I work with people directly is I can say, hey, try this, and they're like, oh, and I can watch them and go, oh, that doesn't work at all, but maybe try this. So I can't do that with you like one on one, but I think long distance we can still do it if you just give me good feedback, and I can say, okay, maybe try this or try that. So yep. Yep. I've done PSTs. Yeah. In fact, if you want to do some stuff like that, we can. I mean, I've done PST tests as well as just even videos, just looking at videos. And what we could do is when I give you some stuff, maybe you could just do some quick, you know, videos of them. Just 1D, 1D, just one camera kind of thing. And let me take a look, and then I can, if I see you doing some stuff, and I can say, hey, maybe we should get data on this. It'd be interesting. So maybe just the visual of you doing it would be the place to start. Well, I mean, I think eventually we would want to cube some of it. Like with my young golfers, I videotaped a lot of this stuff they were doing, just high speed and otherwise. And then I got an idea of the things I wanted to actually see in data, and then I cubed them doing a bunch of stuff. But I looked at this stuff first before I decided what I wanted to actually look, data wise. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh, I'm excited. I'm actually, yeah, I'm pretty excited now because your description and the potential for like working through some stuff is pretty awesome, I think. Cool. Cool, cool. I think it'd be awesome, and it'd be awesome for not only your just general swing and your playing, but also your teaching and your interaction with other athletes and other coaches for that matter. So, okay. Hmm. Totally. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's true. I mean, across the board. I mean, every time you're working with a group or even an individual, and you see the different ways that they manifest this stuff, um, it's eye opening. You're like, oh, and then the same stuff you've been saying and doing to people, and you try to tell them that, and it just doesn't seem to resonate, and you're trying to find new ways to get you mean the stuff, but trying to get it to resonate with people is that's the key. I think that's what the technology is awesome, and you got to have a sense of what's going on to be effective. But I think what's lacking in not just golf instruction, but just coaching and instruction in general in athletics is really the ability to understand it enough to be able to break it down to some simple things that can resonate with the athlete. Because not every athlete responds to the same thing. And yeah, yeah, I think that's the to me once you get past understanding, oh, totally. That's the art. That's the art of it. So yeah, Oh, totally, totally. And that's, I mean, I think that's the thing that gets lost. I mean, obviously, I'm a technology person and I love technology, but I think that's the thing that gets lost in this is that people are just looking at numbers and forgetting that you got to understand it at a level where you can, it's sort of that idea of like if you can't explain it to whatever 10-year-old or whatever the thing is, then you don't know it that well, and it's not so much explaining it as much as delivering it. If you can't deliver it in a way that affects somebody, that resonates with somebody, then it's just kind of pointless, or at least it's a novelty at best. So yeah, yeah, that's cool. Awesome. All right, well, yeah, I'll let you go, but let me get some stuff together, get it online by end of the weekend, and then we'll circle back around and we'll play. We'll have some fun. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I think I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be awesome. Cool. All right. Well, I'll put. Yeah, I'll get this recording. I'll send you the link to this. I'll do a quick video analysis so you have it, and then by the end of the weekend I'll have the other stuff, and then we'll circle back, and I'll email you with all of it, and then we'll circle back around next week. Awesome. Yeah. Have a good evening. All right. Bye bye.